So I'm wandering around and I saw an MMO, and I don't play a lot of MMOs because they don't do a lot of the things that I want. And then talked to Jeremy Walsh, who's the creative director of Chronicles of Elyria, and it sounds like this one might be doing a lot of the things that I'm interested in. So let's talk about what this is and how it's a little different from the stuff that's out there already.
Chronicles of Elyria is a new MMO that's been in development or designed for probably over a decade now at this point. And I started designing it when I was in college and kind of kept putting it away. And over the years I've revisited it as just kind of a part-time hobby project. But then a couple years ago I shared it with some people and they're like, you gotta do this. This is everything we wanted to see in a game. About a year ago I met up with some of my partners from the industry, art director Eddie Smith, and he's been working with me and we've been building up a team. And then last November, my family and I were like, we're going to trade one dream for another. So we sold our land, we were going to buy our house on and everything, and we put in $500,000. And I recruited a lot of friends and coworkers. We got a team of about a dozen people that for the last 4 or 5 months have been developing an MMO, which is really unlike any other. And the reason it's unlike any other is because I've been taking a look at the problems that exist with MMOs, and we've systematically been trying to find ways to solve those problems that are cohesive and feel like a single system, that don't feel like a lot of just separate, unrelated solutions. And we feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the worlds in MMOs, I guess the NPCs, they just feel like they're just there for no reason, and some of the worlds don't feel as dynamic as I would like. Of course, having the other players physically there in the game does help. How have you guys improved, let's say, for instance, the combat? It looks like it's skill-based to me.
When we were kind of thinking about what the ideal MMO looks like and what problems we wanted to solve, we created 5 core design pillars. And the combat system actually speaks really well to our third design pillar, which is that anything in the world that requires character skill, that is, if we're going to put a number on something that allows the character to improve at it over time, it should also require player skill. And we feel like that gives the world a unique edge because we know that it's not about how long you've been in the game necessarily. Somebody who's sufficiently talented, who has the right pre-existing knowledge or the right reflexes and dexterity can come into the game and can do well at it right off the bat. And so our combat system's not auto attack based, it's not hotbar based, it's skill based, and it requires a combination of left and right mouse clicks and timing. And what it's really about is are you perceptive? Can you identify what type of armor your opponent is using and know what the right weapon is to use for that? And there are hybrid weapons like the rapier in our combat demo that's both slashing and piercing. Do you know which attacks you should use against the armor that the person is wearing?
Nice, that's a good level of detail.
Yeah, and it's other things too, like are you hitting the same location? Are you watching to see whether or not they've been maimed and like one of their body parts are no longer effectively usable in combat? Can they hold the sword with that weapon or with that arm anymore? And then it's things like, can you predict? Are you able to identify when their next attack is gonna come? And as you play and as you duel with people, you start to learn their timing and you learn to anticipate that. And so one of the most important elements in this is your ability to deflect, because unless you have a shield, there's no blocking. So if you have a shield, that's great. You can hold it up until you get tired. But if you don't, if you've just got a sword, then you need to be able to time the attacks to make sure you can deflect incoming attacks. And if you can actually successfully anticipate, then you can actually parry and change the flow of combat to your advantage.
Now, as far as the setting goes, let's talk about that for a second. It looks like gritty fantasy to me. Do we have any magical elements or anything high fantasy going on?
So that's all part of the lore. This world is what we consider kind of mid-fantasy to low fantasy initially. It starts off in a world that, from a lore standpoint, there are different religions who have different beliefs about how the world was created and whether or not magic and gods exist. But the reality is that in this game, if there are gods, nobody's seen them in thousands of years. And if there is magic, it's taboo, it's evil, nobody wants to see it, nobody wants to be around it. And that's kind of the world that people enter into. But over the course of 10 years, we have an evolving, dynamic story. Those elements are going to start to play an effect again, and it's going to be interesting to see how people respond to the presence of powerful magics and potentially even gods again.
I've seen a lot of different things in this game that look pretty interesting, and before we were talking, you were talking about the snow accumulation and the footprints. Tell us about how, first off, the snow accumulation works, and then I want to know about the footprints and leaving a trail.
So, as far as the snow accumulation, that kind of goes back to our first design goal, which is something you were talking about earlier, which is we really wanted the world to be immersive and dynamic. And our first design principle is if something in the world can change, either automatically over time or due to player action, it probably should. Now, of course, there's a subset of things that we can do realistically, but one of those things that we can do is we can make the environment change. And so in our game, depending upon humidity and the temperature elevation, it does start to snow, and there are seasonal changes as well. And that's not just cosmetic. That's the important thing, is that the snow has an impact on farming and crops. It has an impact on survival. So if you're not well equipped to handle the cold weather and the snow, you can get hypothermia and be snowed in and effectively die. As well as in the video, you can see footprints. It is possible for other players to track you based on your footprints. I think production actually started in November with an animator. Before that, there was myself, a programmer, and an artist. And the artist is our art director, and he was doing concept as well as 3D models. But we didn't actually have an animator until November. So November is sort of our unofficial start, really. And then as of February, we ramped up. We've got a couple animators now, environment artists, character artists, concept artists, and we actually have an Academy Award-winning composer, Sean Beeson. So we're super excited for the score he's making for this game, and everybody's responded very favorably to the music in our videos that we've published.
I noticed you're using the Unreal Engine. Have you guys been mostly creating all your own assets, or have you been using some stuff from the marketplace and then doctoring it up to fit into your game, or how's that been working as far as asset creation goes?
It's a combination of the two. We're not so naive to think that we have the time or resources to create everything by ourselves, and the reality is there's some really good resources out on the marketplace. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense for us to leverage as much as existing assets as we can and do as little work on those as possible, and really focus on the characters and on the equipment that they are wearing in order to customize our game. So a lot of the materials that we use and the building structures and stuff like that are from store-bought assets. And some people criticize us for that, but for us it means that we get to invest our time and energy where we feel it's going to have the most impact, while at the same time creating a world that's consistent with the look and feel that we want.
I'll never criticize any company for using pre-made assets, because it's all about the gameplay for me. I know there's some guys out there on the internet who are a little ridiculous, but how long do you think this is going to be in development? Do you guys have a set goal for when it's going to come out?
Well, the back-end technology, the algorithms and the design for the game has been in development for a long time. So in many cases, we already know how we're going to do what we want to do. It's just a matter of the time and resources to do it. We're making really good smart business decisions, working with Unreal and looking for middleware and back-end technology to help us with that as well. At this point, based on the way the team is tracking, we'd like to get a minimally viable version of the game, kind of a first release that may not have all the features that we want, but a minimally viable version of the game available by end of next year. We'd like to get players into our game as kind of a closed alpha to give us feedback as early as the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. And that's important to us, because when you've been developing and designing a game as long as we have, you start to get tunnel vision, and we really want to make sure that while we're doing all these really innovative things that we feel like are cool, we want to make sure they're fun and entertaining too. And really the only way to do that when you're so attached to something is to get outside opinion on it. And so that's really what our closed alpha is going to be for, is getting a couple hundred people in to come in, from all over the place and see what their thoughts are.
Are you guys using any third-party software to help with the quest creation and all that sort of thing?
No, that's
dialogue trees, all in blueprints.
Yeah, that's all. It's all actually, a lot of it's blueprint stuff, but more than that, it's actually our Soulborn engine, which is the back-end section of the game. That's the custom story engine that works on a couple layers to make sure that every time you log into the world, there's something interesting for you to do. And I think that's the most important thing for us that we really want to do differently. Is right now, we're seeing a trend between either theme park or sandbox MMOs, but I don't feel like either of them solve what they were ultimately trying to solve. In a theme park game, you have this story that you can go through, and that's great. Everybody gets to come in and experience the story, but literally everybody experiences the same story. And if you create multiple characters, you experience the same story every single time.
Right. The same grind.
Exactly.
It becomes, yeah.
From the sandbox game, oftentimes they give you the tools that you need to do something fun and creative in the world, but there is no story, or if there is, it's thinly veiled on top of the sandbox. And what both of them are missing, that I feel like we wanted to really address with Chronicles of Elyria, is having a reason to log in, something that pulls you back into the world. And so our story engine is extremely event-based, and it's constantly changing. So no two characters, no two players ever experience the same story twice. And the way we do that is by using a 2-layer system. The first layer is your personal destiny. And what that means is that when you create your character, the second phase of the character creation process is picking your birth date. When you pick your birth date, you're identifying what the orientation of the planets were at the time of your birth. And what that really is a fancy random number generator that's creating 100 or so plot lines specifically tailored to you based on the time of your birth and the locations of where you are. And what that means though is that our quest system is actually pretty unique. We don't have quest hubs. So you're not going to see people going from one location to the next, exhausting that area of the quests and resources before moving on to the next. From a design perspective, that's really challenging from a developer.
Really challenging.
Yeah, the problem is that it does two things. Number one, it makes it so that whenever you release an expansion or whenever you want to add new content to the world, you have to create a new area with new higher level creatures and stuff like that.
Right.
That's not what we want to do. That's not where we want to be spending our time. The other thing that it does is it makes it so that people gather in those quest hubs. And in a world where the technology is, it's very easy for us to scale horizontally, to create a large world with stuff spread out all over, but it's very challenging to fit a lot of players in the same location. It's a bad idea to create reasons for them to cluster like that. So what we did is with our story engine, the first layer of this kind of Destiny system, it's based on a series of triggers. And what happens is, let's say you're out in the wild and you stumble upon a player or an NPC who's been injured. It's going to give you a choice of how to solve this problem. Are you going to put him out of his misery? Are you going to walk him back at your own personal risk to safety or whatever? The story keeps track of that, and it says, you know what, this is actually a trigger for one of your personal stories. And so then you experience that quest right then and right there, however you choose to do it. It also keeps track of the choices you make so that as you move forward, whereas before it would have asked fairly neutral quests and questions and how you wanted to handle it, it starts to slowly shift towards either good or evil. And that's kind of one of our main themes for this game is will you choose a path of virtue or something darker? Because it's really up to you which direction your soul is going to go. But the main point I wanted to get to that with those is that unlike having quest hubs, your story, your destiny literally follows you wherever you go. Because at any place, no matter what you're doing, there's an opportunity to unlock one of these unique plot lines that's personal to you. The second layer of the story engine is the main part of the Soulbone engine, which is this dynamic world engine. And we like to think of it as somewhere between a GPS and a choose your own adventure book. And really the abbreviated way to look at it is we have written a story, a 10-year story that's branching and it's expanding. And at any point in time, the state of the world has the opportunity to transition from the current location in the story to the next location. But we don't know which one of those next locations the players are going to choose. It's really up to them. It could be an aggregate thing, like my kingdom is going to invade that kingdom and we're going to take over. And now this creates a new chapter. It's a new part of the story which we anticipated, which is one kingdom taking over another kingdom. And that allows the world to transition in the storyline. But it could be something like an NPC. A single player goes in and it kills a very important NPC in the world, and that transitions the story due to the loss of the life of that NPC. So we don't know when the transition is going to happen, who's going to cause the transition, or where in the world that transition is going to initiate. It also means that because we know we're going to have multiple servers, or hopefully we have enough players for multiple servers, regional or even just within the US, each server is different because the story, the choices the players make on those servers are all going to be radically different.
Are you going to be playing on just one server, or are you going to be hopping around with maybe an avatar in each one?
We hope that most people pick one, but I will probably hop around just so that I can enjoy multiple storylines.
And are you going to be like Richard Garriott and have like a name that becomes an icon and he like Lord British or something, or are you going to have a different name and kind of try to be incognito?
No, I'm not nearly as cool as Richard Garriott is. What I encourage people to do with this game, since it's not class-based, it's fully skill-based, is to think about their favorite fantasy novel or movie, pick a role, something that they really related to, and then find out how you can use the skill system in this game to live that role. And for me, I'm always connected to the Robin Hood story. And so, if it were up to me, I'm going to create a character that's a combination of survival skill tree and champion skill tree. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to be the guy that robs from the rich on their carriages as they come through the highways. And then I'm going to find the nearest hamlet or village, and I'm going to drop the money on the ground so that they can do whatever they need to do to make sure that their village grows.
When's the Kickstarter going to be starting?
The Kickstarter begins May 3rd. We're asking for $900,000 to help us complete the game. We also have friends and family funding happening, and we've got another $500,000 committed from those that are certified investors. So that gives us enough that we can get the minimally viable game out. But May 3rd is when our Kickstarter begins, and we're really hoping we can get the majority of that on day one.
All right. So guys, check it out on the Kickstarter and let us know what you guys think in the comments. Remember, this is extremely early. I don't think I've seen the game this far along, after, especially an MMO with so few months. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the footage. And can't wait to see what happens after the Kickstarter.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it too.
All right, thanks a lot. Special thanks to Corsair. Check out their booth coverage for the new Cherry MX exclusive extremely fast switch. They've upgraded one of their old mice with a very nice infrared sensor, and we've got some pretty interesting technology going on with the Lewis scripting on some of their keyboards. So check out the booth coverage, and also if you're at PAX, stop by and see us at their booth Sunday, 2 o'clock. Be there or be a dodecahedron.